people who shave or wax private parts for a living. What are your horror stories? Not my story, but our teacher in beauty school. She was waxing someone on her period, not uncommon, just wear a tampon, and she didn't realize that the wax had stuck to her tampon string. When she went to pull the strip, the tampon flew out and was obviously an embarrassing mess. Now we're taught to put an applicator over the string or push it out of the way while laying the strip. Edit, not sure how obviously turned into that monstrosity without my phone fixing it. One of my instructors in beauty school told us about when she was a student and her class learned to do waxing. Back then cosmetologists in my state were taught to wax everything, but these days we only do neck and above. Her instructor grouped the ladies up and then told them, "Okay, go ahead and remove everything below your waist," and the students proceeded to wax each other. Talk about getting to know your beauty school pals well. My mom was an esthetician and she told me of a horror story she had. A woman came in for a Brazilian waxing, a regular of my mom's. My mom said that she must have been dehydrated that day, which can make the skin easier to tear, because when she pulled the strip away, she ripped her lady bits. Blood everywhere. My mom described it as looked like a bowling ball down there. The woman was totally chill and made a joke saying something along the lines of, "I guess I won't be having sex for a while." It took a while to heal, but she eventually did go back to my mom as a regular again, and made sure she was hydrated. Not a beautician, but briefly dated one for a bit. She had a guy come in and get his balls and butthole waxed, claiming it was for a hot date that he had that night. She said that he was kind of weird and a little creepy, but she brushed it off. Her and I get dinner after work and her phone is blowing up. The guy had tracked her down on Facebook and went through and liked every single picture that she had posted in the last 5 years. Dude was immediately banned from every coming back. My female friend who's a physician went through something similar to that. It went like, a male patient came to her office complaining about something on his genitalia and then proceeded to take off his pants so my friend can take a look at them. After inspecting it and chatting with the patient, she realized that nothing was wrong and what he was saying was total BS. He was also hitting on her and the medical assistant who was there and being a complete creep while his pants were off. Total fucking weirdo. He was also banned and I have no idea if the cops were involved. I wasn't the practitioner, but my BF and I were practice models thanks to my high pain tolerance, and he was the only male willing to do it. They did sugaring practice. I had a girl get her hand sugar wax glued to my arm for 20 minutes, another get her hand stuck literally to my BF ass cheeks, and a third girl got her glob of wax stuck to her own face. All in the span of one session. I felt so bad for them. The trainer had to go get the dissolve spray stuff to unstick everyone. Also, one girl apparently accidentally got a tampon stuck to the wax and pulled earlier that week. My best friend is a waxer. During her initial training, they asked if anyone wanted to try waxing a male. She figured, why not give it her best and learn the technique. Apparently you have to apply a bit of pressure to the testicles when waxing the male bits. So she applies pressure to her client's testicles, adds the wax, and as she waxes him he ejaculates all over himself. She was absolutely shocked because he didn't say anything about it and he was completely flaccid. She played it cool, left the room, let him clean himself up and leave. When her supervisor came by to see how everything went, she explained the situation and the supervisor was mortified. She said, "You should have told us immediately, that's not supposed to happen." She's been a waxer for the last 5 years and only waxes females. My wife was an esthetician for many years and did full Brazilian waxes. She would routinely tell people that male clients always show up freshly showered and seem to constantly worry that they're not clean enough, as if the person who rips hairs out of your grundle is judging your personal hygiene. The worst, she said, is the woman that would show up where you could smell that they'd recently had sex. Either the smell of latex condoms or, in some instances, bodily fluids that are not her own leaking out as they lay there on the table chit-chatting about their day. Oh, if when I worked at a spa would be the model for new hires to practice Brazilian waxing. One lady decided to become an esthetician late in life. Even with glasses she did not have the best eyesight. She eventually swung one of the attachments for facials over me, essentially just a giant magnifying glass so she could try to tweeze anything she missed. That woman also lifted skin and left bruises. Another woman practicing could not get the wax off. The room was too hot so the wax wasn't working right. I was spread eagle holding a fan at my lady bits. Baby powder flying everywhere. A lot of my coworkers came in to see what was going on. About 8 people got to see my downstairs mix-up that day. They did eventually get the wax off. I know a lot of estheticians and most have stories about being farted on. They usually don't even bat an eye at toilet paper that got left behind. One friend calls it clitty litter. While in aesthetics school during Brazilian training I was a model for 2 girls. One of the girls spreads my butt cheeks apart to the point my skin was hurting to evaluate the situation and she commented on how nice my butthole was. We'll say it was extremely awkward and interesting sitting there on all fours while they wax me all. Just for reference, typically when waxing you start from the back coming forward, or at least that's how we worked out. So this isn't my story, but my colleagues. We are both dermatology PAs. She went to a large cosmetic conference and attended a waxing seminar by a well-known esthetician. She was doing a Brazilian wax on a young man live on stage. When she pulled off the strip of wax, his scrotum tore, and one of his testicles fell out. It was still connected to his body. The esthetician was a total pro and explained that this is a rare, but potential wax complication in guys. So the audience got to see firsthand how to manage this particularly horrific complication. The guy was apparently as cool as a cucumber. You would have to get the Brazilian with a live audience. He was apparently completely fine after getting put back together by medical personnel. I'm going to say this description is, fortunately, inaccurate. My background, urologist. So yeah, I'd have been the one fixing this. The skin can tear, but below the skin is a pretty healthy and thick layer called dartos fascia. Below that is the tunica vaginalis. Only getting through both of these layers would one get to the actual testicle. 0% chance a waxing mishap tore through both of those layers. Can totally believe the skin tore and exposed the dartos fascia, but not the testicle itself. I've fixed lacerations like this from things like zippers and guys getting stepped on by livestock. If that didn't tear the dartos, some wax surely won't either. Not saying it wasn't traumatic for all involved, just not quite as extreme as I bet people are imagining, thankfully. A bit late to the party, and this isn't my story, but an old co-worker's. She had a woman come for assorted spa and aesthetic services. When they got to the Brazilian, my poor co-worker learned this woman was wearing a diaper. All sorted and on the table, ready to begin, and the woman shits on the table. There was no Brazilian for her that day or any day since. It was a rough day at work for many. Well, here I go. Not one of those people, but a friend of mine used to do it as a job. One time this man in his 30s came in saying he wanted a wax around his ass and pubes. So my friend trims the hair a little bit shorter, just doing his own thing, and around this man's asshole he lathers on the wax and places on the paper, waits for it to hold and pulls hard, ripping out the fur, and then all of a sudden some unnaturally large holes around 1 millimeter wide and 3 millimeters deep appear and start leaking a white pus. Turns out this man barely wipes his ass and had hundreds of spots there that all popped when he got waxed and started leaking pus and blood everywhere. Not one of those people, but a friend of mine used to do it as a job. One time this man in his 30s came in saying he wanted a wax around his ass and pubes. So my friend trims the hair a little bit shorter, just doing his own thing, and around this man's asshole he lathers on the wax and places on the paper, waits for it to hold and pulls hard, ripping out the fur, and then all of a sudden some unnaturally large holes around 1 millimeter wide and 3 millimeters deep appear and start leaking a white pus. Turns out this man barely wipes his ass and had hundreds of spots there that all popped when he got waxed and started leaking pus and blood everywhere. So I guess I'm starting my diet today. These are pilonidal cysts and are very common among hairy men. The little holes you are describing are all connected to a large subsurface pus cavern within the butt crack. To get it corrected, they need surgery to cut the whole area out and sewn back together. Laser hair removal is vital to stopping additional cysts from returning after surgery. I lasered many men and a few women with this condition. Not private parts, but in cosmetology school we were broke into groups at one point to learn how to wax. There was this one girl who, don't want to get into it, because of chosen personal difficulties no one wanted to partner with. I felt bad so I let her wax my arm. She didn't take it seriously, only did half my lower arm overlapped areas which can cause burning and severe irritation, kept laughing like it was hilarious, didn't take Belen seriously. She got kicked out of class and reprimanded for the harm she could have caused. I was fine for the most part, but I was super red and rashy from all of the overlapping. The worst part was I couldn't shave to match because of how raw my skin was, so I ended up finishing the wax myself. Worked at a spa for 10 years. STs complained about women who had TP and dingleberries stuck to them. Women who would come in after working all day and didn't shower before their Brazilian wax. Others had STDs and would still spread their legs with no shame. Once had a waxer who accidentally stuck her fingers inside a woman while waxing, so that was fun dealing with that. She was fired. Edit. Spelling. I do not wax, but I work at a waxing salon. Worst thing I have ever heard was that a woman had gotten her lips stuck together cause the waxer got wax on them and it took days to come off. Personally, one time a waxer stopped and looked right at my coochie and squinted before parting my lips with her fingers. Didn't tell me anything either. Like, girl, what did you see? Oh wow, I have so many. I am a full body waxer and I probably do 15-25 Brazilians a day. The amount of women who come in with poop in their butts is astounding. Like it's a regular topic of convo between me and my coworkers. I used to have a male Brazilian client who would always tell me I was hot during his wax and then ask me to leave the room when I was finished so he could get dressed, in private, after I already saw the whole kit and caboodle. And then there would always be a mountain of tissues in the garbage. Not discreet, bro. Combo breaker here. Had vasectomy and circumcision at same time. Medical reasons. Had to shave 110% clean down to single hair. Terrifying concept. Local anesthetic 6 needles total. 3 in the D. 3 week to heal and ready to remove dissolvable stitches. Nope, wait till they dissolve. 2 weeks after they are still there with no sign of dissolving. Had to remove them myself with antiseptic and nail scissors. 20/10ths not recommended experience. Peace. No infection, no complications afterwards. Okay, I have a vasectomy story. This was about 20 years ago. I went into the doctor expecting to just have a consultation. He answered a few questions I asked and a few I didn't. He was a little weird but he really seemed to know his stuff. So then he asked if I was ready. You mean now? Yes, now. We can take care of it in the operating room across the hall. Okay, I go into the room. He tells me that he'll have a couple nurses in the room with me if that's okay. Yeah, whatever. He tells me to take off my pants and underwear, climb on the table, and cover myself with this paper blanket. Then he leaves. The paper blanket is really loud and crinkly, so I get into position and stop moving. The instant I stop, the door flies open, and in walks the doc and 2 women. One was a hot 20-something nurse, the other was a skinny 50-something nurse with a raspy voice from smoking her whole life. The doctor turns on a bright spotlight, grabs the paper blanket and sends it flying, causing my naughty bits to be instantly on full display. This must be how women feel. The doc picks up a 25C Bic razor, grabs my penis, stretches it up to my belly button, then starts shaving me with the brisk repetitive motion. So what do you do? I write software. The conversation continued. He gave me some locals and went to work. There were tools, and sounds, and smoke, and odd sensations. I preferred to keep my gaze firmly locked on the drop ceiling panel above me. I had a relatively new, at the time, procedure where they poke a hole in the middle, pull the wiring through, then clip everything and put it back. so no scars on the sides. He does one side which is uneventful except for the odd sensations. Then he pulls the other side's wiring through, and I realize that I can still feel things a little too much. But he's going on and on about how he hates Windows 98 and it always causes him problems. I'm waiting for a break in the conversation to ask for more drugs. And then, snip, the sensation was very painful, and could best be described as a drinking straw, filled with liquid, then cut in the middle, and feeling all the liquid drain, mixed with too much pain and a kick in the groin. I reacted as one might expect. The 20-something nurse quietly freaked out. They peeled me off the ceiling. The doctor had another syringe ready to go luckily and shot me up a few more times while apologizing profusely. Old nurse started rubbing my shoulder saying, "Don't worry sweetheart, he's giving you more medicine." I calmed back down and he finished up. I required 0 stitches. I got up off the table, and he packed my junk in gauze held in place by my underwear, which caused a large bulge in my groin area. On the way out, I kept accidentally running into the 20-something nurse, first in the office, then the stairwell, then the parking lot. She wasn't interested in small talk. Then my wife and I went to Walmart. Don't let my tale of woe discourage you from a vasectomy. After having it done, it was one of the better decisions in my life. I have no scars, and it's impossible to tell that I've had it done. No one would ever know unless you told them. Just make sure you're totally numb before they start cutting things. I've told this story before on Reddit. But I had a female friend who used to work in a waxing salon. When I asked her why she quit, she gave this small shudder and talked about a knobby sweaty woman who came in for a bikini wax. When I was on my knees and 2 inches away from a vagina that hadn't been washed in about a week. I knew this wasn't what I wanted to do in my life. A coworker was doing this nice lady's bikini. When the time comes to do around the bottle, the lady grins and says you will get a little surprise. So coworker, of course, wants to know what she means. Client tries to get cute by going, "Oh, you'll see, haha." Coworker stands her ground, so the client finally says that she was back from a trip where she got some sort of butt worms that she called her little buddies and that she says are very cute. Haha. Coworker sent her out without touching the client's butt. Friend of mine was doing beauty therapy at college, and was coming up to the end, about to become fully qualified. One thing the college did was essentially operate a beauty therapy place in much the same way as dental students practicing dentistry under the supervision of trained dentists. Customers would come for certain treatments and would essentially fill in a long survey and rate all sorts of different things, and that would essentially inform your grade. So, a woman comes in for a full frontal wax. Nothing terribly exotic about that. Nice and easy. She follows instructions, gets on the table, etc. Friend prepares the wax, strip papers, applies the wax, gets her first strip, smooths it on, and thwap. The wax strip, now loose, flies out of her hand and slap, sticks on the wall across the room, pubes sticking out like so many spiders' legs. Even worse though, what else is there? Her tampon dangling from the bottom. Both of them are absolutely paralyzed with shock, until my friend gathered her wits and left the room so the customer could sort herself out, inwardly cursing at what now appears to be a guaranteed fail. She came back in, finished off the wax session in what I can imagine was horrifying awkwardness, and saw the customer off. Upon cleaning up, came out, was about to explain herself to her teacher, picked up the forms filled in by the customer. 10 tabs across the board. Magical. I'm not a beautician, but sometimes while getting my own waxes my beautician would tell me stories. I'm calling my beautician Claire to make the story simple. Claire had a regular client who needed a wax while Claire was out of town. I guess she got someone not very experienced. She poured too much wax on in the wrong place, held one side down, tore the wax off and tore this poor woman's clitoris. Not somewhere you want stitches, so the hospital gave her some glue. They even had fun blue glitter glue. The client was a stripper and said at the very least she had something to talk about with her own clientele, and I think she managed to score some sympathy/horror tips out of it. But holy shit.